Crystal will cover in her, okay, in her comments. Well, let's see if, why we're echoing.
No, it's random.
Okay.
Why is the technology guy?
Would you like Dr. Credible to talk about those now, or would you like for her to talk about it during her comments?
I'm fine either way.
Why don't we just wait and you can, and then number 3, I'll just keep going. Number 3, implement the best practices in recruiting and hiring. A follow-up district survey was sent to staff to gather feedback on how staff would like to receive appreciation, which was one of the top concerns identified in previous morale meetings. And the other issue was around salary and benefits. And so small committees are starting to meet with that. And so they've been gathering that information and hopefully making a plan. I know they're making a plan moving forward on how to do both of those things. So, and the last one is about the search process for the next superintendent of schools. And if you'd like to share the update to that process.
I would. Thank you very much. I'm excited to report that the board
Met last evening and selected our final 4 candidates. We had a number of very strong candidates apply. It was a very exciting process to go through and difficult to narrow it down to a final 4. But with that, we're very excited about the candidates who we are bringing forth. They will be in town November 28th, 29th, 30th, and December 1st. And we'll have, frankly, a 12-hour day of interviews, meeting with a group of students, meeting with a group of teachers, with local community officials, central office administration, and a parent public session in the evening before having dinner and then interviewing with the Board of Education. So expect a very busy week. We'll be sending out information on how folks can participate in that. This is a very public process, and we want the public input, as this is the most important decision a school board makes, and is in a 10 to 15 year decision. And so we are strongly encouraging that input. And so if you don't see something relatively soon, feel free to reach out to a board member who can get you pointed in the right direction to make sure you see the appropriate information. With that, anything else that I've missed, Board? So again, extremely excited about our final 4 candidates and where we stand and where we're headed as a district.
That's all I have.
All right, 9.3, Assistant Superintendent for Academic Services. You're up, Dr. Catterfield.
Thank you. I have 2 items under our MSIP 6 update, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Tracy. There she is. We've had a Collect 2.0 event, and Tracy's going to share a little bit about that, and then I'll follow up with some other items.
Does you need to go to the podium? I know.
Probably.
You might have to go to the podium so people can hear you.
Randy, is it best if she goes over there?
Yes.
Okay.
So COAC invited 10 of our students to an event that was at the Junior Achievement Center downtown. And we partnered with De La Salle Charter School, who also had 10 students. I took 3 seniors, a couple of juniors, and a couple of sophomores. They were all very nervous in the beginning. They were in groups and did not really open up until they started working on an actual project. So each table was given a real project in Kansas City. They were amazing, and I'm working on a presentation to provide to the community, waiting on some information from the other school. So as the day started wrapping up, it was about, we left there at 1:30. So they were together for like 5 hours, and did a lot of team building activities, talked about their schools. It was their school's homecoming, but they don't have a football team. So they had a lot of questions like, what does that look like? It was really interesting to watch the kids engage in their own conversations. And at the very end, when we were leaving, they were passing their phones to each other. And it was just like amazing. So they've been in contact with those kids. They want to do a shadow activity and see what their school's like, because on their website, you can't really see much. And they don't understand what kind of day, based on what they were sharing with us. They do a lot of real world learning, and they have internships. And so it was an experience where our kids got to hear, how they ended up at this charter school, and what their future plans are. They have a lot more experience with what they're doing after high school. So they were asking a lot of questions about that, which was interesting. They've invited them to the game this Saturday, so we're hoping they can come. But this is really far for those kids, is what they were saying. So they don't know if they're going to be able to make it. But our kids had good questions, like their school is right in the city. So they were like, where do you park? You can leave and go somewhere else, like Subway for lunch, which is a really big deal. So it was great to see that. And what ended up transpiring was them wanting to shadow. We did not set that up. Where as the adults, we're trying to let them create that themselves. They have created a group chat and are talking about maybe after Christmas break, switching and coming here for a half a day and us going there for a half a day. So I think what it taught me was it is our responsibility as educators to get our kids out of our community and help them to understand that there are kids that look different and go to school differently and still buy a homecoming or a dress for a dance, still shop at the same places, still are on Instagram like crazy and Snapchat, and they can work on projects, real world projects together and get just as excited. So it was an amazing day, and I hope that we can take more kids. Of course, it really hyped Jamie up, and he's like, we want to do this again and have more kids. So looking at that space and where we were, as we left and got into the city, what we talked about was it's different when you're going to dinner with your family downtown. But when you're on a school bus and you're about to engage with kids from that community or from an area that's different from yours, it's a whole different feeling. So the kids were out of their comfort zone, didn't know what questions to ask, but as they sat there with them and they had their snacks and stuff, they just started talking about teenage stuff, and it came naturally. So it was a great reflection, and a great reflection for me that we need to get out of Smithville more often and help kids realize that we can do this with any school, anywhere. And so I'm excited about looking for more opportunities like that. So hope that wasn't too long, but it was a good experience.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Platt?
Question.
No, I happened to run into one of those students who I think she would have gone on for 3 hours telling me about how phenomenal it was. So thank you. And I know they got a ton out of it, just like you shared. So
Well, Sly James was there, and he rocked their world. He was so amazing and just kept, going, oh, these kids are fantastic. So it was really a good experience.
So in regards to other things related to our kindness and inclusion plan, there really is a lot going on. We've got POAC groups going at the high school, the middle school, and in fifth and sixth grade of the elementaries. The pictures that the elementary principals are sharing, and the just the information about how our middle school students are interacting with our elementary students and our high school students interacting with our middle school students. Such a wonderful opportunity for peer mentorship and building those relationships. And so that's going on. We have our cadet teachers who are working on holidays around the world, lessons provided our elementaries on the day that Matt Glover returns. We have American Family, who is sponsoring a kindness recognition program district-wide that will kick off fairly soon. There's a lot to showcase. And so on February 27th, we are planning our Kindness and Inclusion Committee reunion. And we're going to bring some of these groups in and do some panel discussions and presentations of the kids so they can really see just the amazing things that are going on to connect our kids and build that sense of belonging. As we talk about school safety and what we need to do in order to really educate kids and create that feeling of safety in our buildings, this is part of it, to make everybody feel welcome and that the space is their space. So it's exciting, and the description of what Tracy provided of that experience for our kids and how meaningful it was for them, it's awesome. So put that on your calendar, please. February 27th, 6:30, probably in the high school cafeteria. Related to CSEP, Denise and I met with our area supervisor last week. He had gone through our CSIP and scored it. So we will miss 2 points. And that's because we do not have an academic achievement goal in our district plan. We have them in the building plans. We do not have them in the district plan. He also recommended reformatting so that it looks more like our kindness and inclusion plan. That's kind of the format that they're looking for. So Stacy Sapp and I are working on that. By the time we meet again in December, everything that we need to submit for the continuous improvement part of MSIP will be completed. We'll have our response to the standards in, we will have the reformatted CSIP in, and that project will be over. Again, that will be scored and will receive points, but it won't become part of our APR until all districts have gone through that process. So it won't be until the fall of 24 that that score becomes part of the APR. We should get our preliminary APR early in December. They haven't set a specific date. Originally, they were going to release our academic achievement status at one point and then our growth at another. And for whatever reason, they've decided to do them both at the same time, but they haven't provided an exact date. So hopefully by the time we meet again, it will be public information, but they do give us a little bit of a window in which we can appeal the data. So I'm not quite sure when that will happen, but it should be soon. And you know, it's our foundation year, and we'll just look for areas where we can grow as we continue through the new accreditation process. Any questions related to that? Okay. Strategic planning starts tomorrow. We have 52 students. Well, not 52 students. We have a group of 52, which includes students, staff, community members, business leaders, faith leaders, the wide gamut. Very exciting to have that size of a group. We visited the facility today, and it's going to be a wonderful space for that discussion. We also, through the survey, we have gathered information from almost 300 of our community members. So we have, I mean, we've far surpassed the number of participants that we've had in the past just with those two things. After Friday, we expect to have the foundation for our portrait of a graduate. Whether it will be complete on Friday or not may not be. We may have a small group who needs to finish that up based upon the input of the larger team. And then next semester, we'll start on our focus groups that will work on specific goals and action plans. So it's very exciting that we have that going, and it's going to be a good week. A few things related to teacher retention and career ladder. I'm going to turn it over to Kim first, though, because HR has been doing some new things related to reaching out to our teachers, and I just wanted her to have an opportunity to share.
So, retention is a big thing for us moving forward. In the past, we've always done an exit survey. So once somebody's ready to leave the district, we've reached out, asked those questions, but never have we gone with our new hires and said, what does our process look like from the very beginning? So what does our recruitment look like? How did that impact you? What made you decide to join the district? How did our interview process look? How could we improve upon that? What is our onboarding? How does that measure up? What do you know now that you felt like you should have known day one when you stepped onto campus? And so we went through that process. We pushed that out to all new hires. We got some really good feedback. A lot of the questions were pretty open-ended so that they could provide comments, and it was very personal to them. So we took that information, we've pushed that out to those that need to know. So if it was related to technology training, we've shared that with the technology department. We've shared information with the building principals to see what that looks like from the building side of things. So we're collecting data and we're acting on it now so that as we prepare for next year's recruiting season, hopefully it'll be much smaller, then we'll have some improvements. Some of the things that we want to do also, and this came about a little bit from our staff morale surveys and conversations that Michelle and I had during the summer, was we really want to know human resources and some of our other administrators from central office outside of when, you know, they may be in trouble or something needs to be addressed and things like that. So we've made a concerted effort we really want our new staff to be a part of the culture. We want them to know we're grateful that they're here. We want to check in on how they're doing these first few weeks of the school year. So Chris Warnson and I, she's the administrative assistant for human resources. She does a fantastic job connecting with all of our staff members. But we purchased little succulent plants, and we made little notes on them and wrote them a little note and took that around to all of our new staff members, whether it was a new custodian, a new teacher, it didn't matter. We welcomed them. We checked in on them and just said, you know, we want you to plant roots here. We want you to grow with the district, but most importantly, we really appreciate how you're helping our students grow. And so we're trying to do some things that we haven't done before, really focusing on what do we need to do to connect and retain those highly qualified staff members that we put so much effort into recruiting, we want to keep them here. You're welcome.
In addition to that, we met last Wednesday for several hours, the career ladder committees from each building and the building principals, and we reviewed all of the career ladder plans. There are some adjustments that need to be made. We met together as a team because we wanted to make sure we were very consistent about what we were approving as far as activities, to make sure that we were within the parameters of the grant. And so we're working on some of those revisions. It was actually a pretty successful night, went a lot faster than I thought it would. And excited to get that going. So our teachers are documenting their hours and be able to get all that turned into the state at the end of the year, and they'll get those additional stipends. So that's very exciting. I have a couple of things under other. First, you have a gift at your station. The 5th grade students at Eagle and their art teacher, Miss A, created kindness coins. And they contacted me and said we would like to send them to all of the central office staff and to the board. So those are especially for you from 5th grade Eagle Heights kindness coins. So if you can't see, it's a decorated circle and it has some kind of phrase on it about, you're awesome, or have a lovely day, or be kind, whatever that might be. But very encouraging, very, very sweet. So that was nice of them to do that for you. They would if you have time. We have also sent out this past week a survey related to the calendar in order to get feedback on adjustments that we might make for next year. We anticipate having a calendar for you in January to approve. So we'll be working on that with a calendar committee that includes members from salary and benefits. One thing that's become really clear to us over the last few years is that our calendar really is a benefit for our teachers. And so one of the things that we did a couple years ago is extended the school day by a few minutes so that we were able to have an additional work day for the teachers when we come back from Christmas break. That allows them to have a day to prepare for second semester that they're doing as a work day rather than as their own day. And that has been very well received. That's just an example of how the calendar can be a benefit to our teachers. So I'm excited to get that going. I don't expect that there will be major changes, but one thing that we did here is potentially having a day off in April, because the stretch between spring break and the end of the school year is very long. Probably more so for our staff than maybe our students, but we're collecting feedback from both parents and staff on that to see what the sentiment is related to that. And lastly, got a really exciting email this afternoon. When we did our program evaluations a week or so ago, Annie Palmer, our literacy facilitator, shared with you some of the work that we're doing with Matt Glover. Well, he's writing a book, and part of that includes video of staff and students, and they would like to film some of that in our schools. So we are excited about that, and if that's a possibility, we want that to happen. But we're working really hard on telling our story. We're not very good at that, and we're not really good at sharing, publicly the things that we're doing that are really amazing. And so to have someone of his stature, a national consultant, say, we want to use your staff and your students in this process, that is a huge compliment. And it really speaks to the work that our teachers do with our students on a daily basis, the hard work that they put into the writing units, and also Annie's leadership there. So that is what I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Very much. Very exciting.
Can I interject something?
You certainly
And
may.
so there's no place on the agenda for this, but talking about telling our story, Mindy Hedgeworth is our communication specialist, and she's been working really hard to tell our story. And so this month's edition of our Warrior Quick News, and even in our Warrior Wire, we're going to be talking about some of the ways that we're giving back to our community and some of the exciting things of our students. So we're working hard to tell our story. So if you have ideas and things you want to know about us, somebody reach out to us and tell us what you'd like to know. We're happy to share. So thanks for all your work, Mindy.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Last couple board meetings, we've talked a lot about facilities, talked a lot about our bond project coming up in April 2023. So I wanted to share with the board a presentation that kind of gives an overview of that bond project. And I've shared the screen now. should be able to see it on for everybody at home on Zoom. Randy's going to go ahead and pull it up on the screen as well, so people here can see it. All right. So our 2023 bond project. This is going to be show our first overall site plan, and you can see that this site plan and bond project, no tax increase bond project, touches every building that we have here in the district. And so just kind of shows a quick overlay of our main campus as well as Maple and Eagle Elementary. The main projects we have in our bond are the transportation facility, the sidewalk improvements we have on main campus, the Horizon and middle school HVAC project, our security enhancements at all buildings, converting the middle school athletic field to synthetic turf, and the high school gym expansion remodel. And we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of those projects. So the first one I want to mention is the transportation facility. That is going to be located on the south end of our campus, just off the drive of Horizon to 92 Highway. Our architects, DLR, are working hard with the civil engineers to look at that site, see what traffic patterns will look like, turning radiuses, the number of buses we have. And so what you see there is just a generic kind of outline. It doesn't mean anything specific right now. And so, but we wanted to have something there to represent what that would look like. So that is the location of the transportation facility. And that's just a quick overview. That has not been finalized yet. That's just a quick picture to show that this is going to have some bays. It will have that, and some offices, some training spaces, restrooms, and facilities there for our drivers, and also a loading dock for deliveries, which we currently don't have anywhere on campus. The second piece is a sidewalk improvement plan, and hopefully this gives a little more detail than we have in the past. We've got some feedback about existing sidewalks and where that connects to new ones. So we tried to illustrate that a little better in this slide. You can see the areas in red are where new sidewalks would go in. The biggest piece would be on Commercial Avenue there. That would connect the Angus Hall of Fame sidewalk going all the way north on Commercial and connect up with the city sidewalk there. So we're excited about that stretch, but also on campus, we want to make sure our kids can walk from Commercial all the way to any building that we have, whether it's the high school, middle school, or Horizon Elementary. And so the red areas show where the new sidewalks would be, and the black dotted areas show where existing sidewalks currently exist. So you can kind of see how they would connect up and get a kid from point A to point B. You can see there's already existing sidewalk in front of district office. We do have some painted areas off on the north side of that middle school parking lot, so kids can safely walk down to the middle school. And then you can see if they're coming from Commercial and do want to go all the way down to Horizon, where they would cross the middle school at the more or less busy interchange there down by the gym, and then head on down to Horizon. So hopefully that illustration helps just a little bit more of how kids would walk and navigate through the area. The next project is the long-awaited HVAC improvements at Horizon and Middle School that would start this summer. The next project is security enhancements. This would be at all buildings. We're going through the project list right now, kind of refining what the cost of each one would be, trying to put a comprehensive package together, and force ranking what would be the most important things that would be help with safety on our campus. So we're kind of going through that list now, but that would hit every building with all the projects that we'd be looking at for that list. The next project is converting the middle school athletic field to synthetic turf. This is about opportunities for students all day long. We have PE classes from the high school, the middle school, and Horizon that utilize our outdoor areas at all times. And many times they all can't go to the main athletic field that we have. And so having an alternate site would allow easy access for middle school and Horizon to quickly go and travel to that area, and also have more opportunities before and after school for practices for all different teams and clubs, whether it's football, soccer, band, dazzlers, cheer, a place for them to practice that has the same surface that they'd be performing on, any night during the week where you'd have an event. So that is the location of the middle school athletic field. And then the last project is the high school gym expansion. When that high school was built in 1969, they actually prepared that to expand where you have the mezzanines, where the weight room and wrestling room are. And we basically finalized that expansion with this remodel. We would knock those walls out and have open areas to be able to expand our seating. With the passage of this bond, the bleachers that we would need for those areas, it would take about 24 to 26 weeks to be able to design those and get those ordered and bring those in. So the lead time on those are very long. So we would not be able to get bleachers right after that first summer, but we would be able to knock out those areas and open it up and also remodel that stage area. There'd be a multi-purpose room that could be used for different groups like robotics, dazzlers, cheer, that would give them their own space. So we're excited to do that remodel in the high school gym. And many of you may have already seen the floor that was already done this last summer. So exciting projects that we have for the upcoming no tax increase general obligation bond this April. And I'd happy to entertain any questions you have.
Can you just clarify, you said no tax increase? right?
Correct, no tax increase.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Hitchcock? I just have one quick question. Can you remind me the age of the HVAC that we're replacing?
Sure. So the HVAC at Horizon and middle school are original with the buildings. So those were built in the mid-90s, and pretty much every unit on there, unless there was a wing that was expanded, is original with the building. So it would replace those. And I do have a second part of the agenda, if I don't have any more questions on the bond campaign. We do have it further on in the board meeting, we do have an agenda item for draft ballot language. So another opportunity to ask some questions there, but I kind of want to just give a visual of what the projects would look like and where those were located with this part of the agenda. All right, if no more questions on the bond, I'd like to introduce a couple folks that are with us today. We have Joe Kinder and Mackenzie Teaklaw from Smithville Investments, and they would like to talk a little bit about long-range financial planning, our bonding capacity, and where we stand as a district right now.
Thanks for having me. I need to head back that way. Is that right? Yeah, absolutely. I think Mackenzie's just gonna watch for now, but she's behind the scenes doing a lot of work for us, and she does a lot of great stuff. I know that you have an executive summary here that is based on the long-range planning that you all have engaged in, and then our work behind the scenes with the administration. Just a few things I wanted to point out there. You know, you've got a debt service levy that is designed to be able to do these no tax increase bond issues as you grow every 5 to 7 years or so. You continue to be a community that grows very quickly and have had the foresight to put that in place. And so this is part and parcel with what you all have been planning and you will continue on. And I know you have a lot of boxes checked over the last decade or so on projects that you've gotten done, things that you've been able to do to improve your campuses and make room for those new kiddos as they come in. One of the things that we always want to make sure we're doing is conservatively planning. So when we talk about a no tax rate increase bond issue, this bond issue itself, you could fall into a very heavy recession and still not have to raise taxes on your patrons. Now, and when we talk about your future planning and hitting those next step of your capital projects, that is the sort of thing that could be slowed down by this. So as we talk about the next bond issue and the bond issue after that, if you were to run into some issues where you were to not grow or we hit a recession, you were to back up like we did in 2009 or 2010, we might have to delay some of those projects, but certainly never going to have to raise taxes in order to be able to pay this, or almost certainly never. So you're in good shape there. One of the reasons why that is because we use low growth assumptions. We want to be realistic, but you all have a levy that allows you to go up to your bonding capacity. So if we'll remember, there are two things that really impact what bonding capacity we have or what ability we have to go out and ask our taxpayers for those bond projects. One is simply your ability to pay back your debt. And you're in great shape there. And we stress test those things. And I think we could have 2 or 3 great recessions for you all, and you could still not have to raise your taxes. So your revenues are great. On the other side of things, we've got your state constitutional limit, which is your bonding capacity. They will not let you go above 15% of your outstanding, or 15% of your AV with outstanding debt. And that includes all current outstanding debt. So with this particular issue, we're going up within $1 million of that. And you say, well, can't we go another $1 million? And I would say yes to that ordinarily, but this is a very inexact science. And one of the things that we're relying on is your deposits in your debt service fund. We are allowed to take cash that you have available and count it towards your bonding capacity. The problem with that is we've actually had this happen in real life. As a county clerk in Boone County, which is a large county, city of Columbia and some other areas, transmitted the wrong money to the wrong school district. And the state auditor doesn't care about that. The state auditor has to register your bonds and make sure that you've done everything properly and within the state constitution. And they were actually $50,000 short on the bonding capacity because they had a $400,000 check going to the wrong school district. Now, we were able to save that with some other things, and we're going through a process right now to try to make sure we've got all the bonding capacity in the bank, but we want to make sure we give you that cushion in case there are some mistakes, because that bonding capacity is based on your debt service fund balance on the date of the election. And we don't get to go back and redo those or change that at all. So we do like to leave a little bit of a cushion there. Ultimately, we'd love to get you that additional million and go right up to the penny, but that's not the way the state of Missouri works. We've got to be careful and make sure we're giving you that room. But as we talk about that capacity, that's really the limit on what you can do right now. So as we come back, you're going to recoup that bonding capacity, one, by paying off debt, and two, by growth. One of the things that we assume in our growth rates is, you'll see we've got a little bit of a jump there in that 2024, which will be this coming tax year, of 8%. That's not saying that there's been a bunch of growth, although I know there has in the community. What we're trying to do is, again, give you a realistic look at what's going to happen during this reassessment cycle. And so as a reminder, reassessment cycles happen every 2 years. All of the growth that we saw in the housing market in 2021 was not included in your growth, has not been included in your growth yet. This is calendar year 21, calendar year 22 for your AV that you will get this coming summer for your 2024 tax revenues. So we have currently about 15% growth in the consumer price index over those 2 years. So this is half of what we've actually seen in growth. We know that the housing market in Kansas City has done better than the CPI. The feedback we get from realtors is largely people moving from other parts of the country where cost of living is significantly higher. And that is driving up housing prices around here above and beyond what's happening with the CPI. So we feel like 8% is conservative. We had that discussion with Mr. Hedgeworth and Mr. Kruger earlier and said, look, we're still being very conservative. And in fact, there's another separate scenario we gave you just to give you an idea all the way out to 2030 on what we're thinking. And all we did was look back 20 years, which would include the Great Recession and some of the worst economic recessionary pressures on your AV, which is the number one thing driving your ability to pay back your debt. And we're actually growing about 65, 70% of that is what we're projecting. So over a 20-year period, you may see some ups and downs, but I think in the end, you'll be ahead of that. And in fact, in that other scenario, we went ahead and added an average growth rate that would average out over the last 20 years what would look like in the future 20 years, and that's up around 4.5% growth versus the 3.5% growth we're showing. So we feel very good about that. That's not, again, expecting a whole lot of growth or anything like that. Really, 3.5% is about where you would expect a CPI or just the general depreciation of the value of the dollar over time. That next page, the one that's displayed there, is what we call your bonding capacity recapture schedule. So again, when you're going up to your capacity, it takes some time to recoup that capacity. And we wanted to make sure we were folding that in with your long-range capital plan. So you can see $17.5 million this year, potentially, and then $12 million down in 2026. And then down in 2030, we have a $21 million bond issue. Again, those are basically up to your bonding capacity as we're projecting it. So any growth above that is going to lead to some additional growth. In 2030 specifically, any growth below that is going to lead to something smaller. And again, there's another scenario there that would average out your growth over the last 20 years and apply that to the current assumptions we're making, and that gets you another $6.5 million in that year to get to $27.5 million. The other thing that's built into here, should you need it, we've had some discussions as we want to make sure we're protecting operating dollars. As much as I'd like you to go out and build $100 million worth of facilities every year, we have to make sure we're taking care of you guys holistically on the financial spectrum. And we've got $1.7 billion that has been cut out of general revenue at the state level. And just as a reminder, the state legislature can cut taxes, but they have no power within the state constitution to increase revenues or raise taxes. So we're doing great in the economy right now, but cutting $1.8 billion out of the general revenue over the next 3 to 5 years is certainly going to be impactful to you all, because the largest line item in the state general revenue fund is the foundation formula, is the majority of your state revenues. So within this as well, we built in about a dime transfer from your debt service to your operations. That's something that you could do and still accomplish these goals Potentially, you could put off elections into the future if you wanted to and move more money over if you had to. But just wanted to make you aware that we're planning for that in case that eventuality would occur. I think school districts around the state are going to be in a position where more and more they're relying on local revenues for operations. And what we like to say is, you can always put off a building project, you can't put off educating your kids, right? So we want to put you in a position where operationally you have that flexibility moving forward. Something we do all over the state a lot is this idea of this no tax rate increase levy transfer, where you just simply are asking your voters, hey, we've been growing like crazy. We've been really trying to get our facilities to where we can house all of our kids. But now if we've slowed down or we need this operational revenue, we need to be able to address that. We can slow down. We're going to have to slow down some of our building projects, but we can move some of that over into our operations. And as a reminder, your debt service fund, this fund we're speaking of, can only be used to pay off bricks and mortar debt. It would be great if you could just transfer it over. You can't do that. You can only use it to pay off general obligation debt. If you want to move it over, you got to ask your voters. But we built that in there again as a way to show you that it's a robust model that you can make those payments, but also that given some of the climate, the environment we're going on, we're trying to make sure we're protecting you holistically from the finances that you have. The ballot language, I know we'll talk, you all will go over that a little bit later, but if you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. That is pretty restrictive. The state statute is actually the form of ballot itself. So really all we can play with is what projects you list within there and then what order those projects are in. So that would be something that, you know, your community group would be driving on how they would want to see that and some of those things. But other than that, there's not a whole lot we can do to manipulate that language. It's not very flexible. Things that we have to have in there, if you're going to buy land, if you're going to build anything new and separate that is not considered an addition, if you're going to buy anything that would not be considered a fixture, so any equipment that would be like a bus or technology that's not actual infrastructure technology like computers, and then if you were to buy back any of your lease debt, and I know you do all have some lease debt because you are being a veteran community, do run up to that money capacity, so we've done some elections to do some lease debt for you all, and that comes out of your capital projects fund. But those four things you have to list. Everything else we can kind of encumber under a phrase that basically says renovate, improve, add, and repair existing school facilities, so that if you come in, you know, things come in way under budget, which unfortunately we're not seeing a lot of, you have some flexibility on how to spend those dollars. Should you need to do additional projects. If things come in over budget, you know, we'll have to talk about, we'll have to tackle that when we get there. But that's what ballot language would entail and take care of. I know the other thing is this idea of the reimbursement resolution that you have in front of you as well. That's something we do on a regular basis. You are allowed to go ahead and do some of these projects while you wait for authorization. You just have to know, of course, that any dollars you spend, if the election is not authorized by your voters, you know, then that has to come out of your general operating reserves. But if you get to a point, once you pass this resolution, if the election passes, when we fund those bonds, you can go ahead and reimburse your capital projects fund to do other projects. You know, we do this in almost every bond issue we do because you're going to have some planning and strategic elements to that come from architects and other folks that are going to help you. They're going to have bills accrued, but we've gone as far back as, I think I was just telling Robert the other day that we did Ballard Schools, which is down by Clinton's little K8. They had to put a new HVAC unit in August. They had their gym HVAC unit go out. They didn't have the cash to do that. So they spent their reserves down and we ran a bond issue in April, and they actually passed this very similar resolution and were able to then not have to spend the reserves to get that project done. So it's just something that allows you that flexibility and that freedom. As standard practice, we put it in all of our election calling language within the resolution, just so you have that freedom and that flexibility. But this would cover a lot. I know I went over a lot of stuff, but I wanted to take a minute just to kind of talk to you about our process and how we're trying to fit your financial planning in with your long range facilities planning, so that you can feel good moving forward, that you've got a good plan in place and continue to be able to deliver on those promises to your taxpayers as you do that.
How did you forecast our growth, the total assessed value? What margin did you use? Did you say 3.5?
Yeah, so if we go back up to that first page one of that particular handout there, that third column in from the left is the 3.5%. And there's no magic to that. I'll be really honest with you. We will project your growth however you want. If we look back over the last 20 years, you've grown about 4.5% a year on average. with our rural communities that aren't growing, we aren't seeing new rooftops coming in, we're using 1.5% or 2%, which is what we're truly trying to do there, is just capture the time value of money. Since we've had the dollar, it has been depreciating over time, right? That's, we all know that when we were kids, you could get a gumball for a nickel, and now I think it costs $1. I don't know at the store. I haven't gotten a gumball in a while. But we're trying to incorporate that into those communities so we can make sure we're not leaving money on the table in terms of what revenues they have coming in, so they can do the projects they need. With you all, arguably, we could go considerably higher than that because we know you have the development going on. But the fact of the matter is, all that does for you all is accelerate those timelines. In fact, you've grown faster, and we've had some of those discussions and what we projected. So your bonding capacity, I think, is $3.5 to $4 million higher this year than what we had originally anticipated. And that's what we really want to make sure we're doing is, if we have any news for you, hopefully it's better news than what we're showing you, but we again want to be realistic about
You
what's
just
going to happen.
directly answered my question, because I was gonna see.
If we do this annually, assessing how far off were we from our last projections. So you just kind of answered that for me.
Yeah.
That's where I was kind of wanting to know.
We were off by 25 or 30%. Now, some of that has to do with the growth in personal property that's related to the supply chain issues and the chip shortage issues. That happened this year, and you saw a lot of growth, and I'm sure everybody is getting to see their tax bills now, where your used car went up in value considerably, right? But other than that, you can see those other growth years above there and some reassessment years where we've had some growth in the economy and some positive growth, and it's been in excess of that. And that's what we'd like to see. Again, if you don't see that, we feel confident you can pay off this round of debt even with 2 or 3 great recessions in a row. It's just a matter of when you come back into the next no tax rate increase on district, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you very much. Love the green. Nice touch.
Hey, I know you got a good game on Saturday, so I wear my hair. Thank you for noticing.
We do. We look forward to seeing you there. Bring your $6. All right, any more questions on 9.4? All right, we'll move on to 10.1, general financial review. Mr. Hedgeworth, I believe the floor is yours again.
Yes. So when you look at the general financial review for this board meeting, you'll find a couple additional documents. And let me stop sharing my screen here real quick. And those documents show percentage of budget spent by function and by object. So wanted to make sure you guys saw that, kind of gave that feedback last board meeting. I'm going to add some other things in the December meeting as well that kind of show some big pillar pictures of where we were when we first, gave you the preliminary budget, and some different things like the land purchase, contract modifications and things like that have, taken us to where we are projected right now for the budget. So you'll see those in December. But we were able to put, with the help of Mrs. Kopp here, those percentages of budget that are spent, and be happy to answer any questions that you have on any of those. Oh,
You're good.
okay.
Any question on this one?
Can't top the Girl Scouts. So.
Okay. There are no questions on general financial review. We will accept that and go back up to 6.1. We've got Girl Scout Troop 1147 here who has a presentation for the board. Welcome, ladies, and the floor is yours. As they get set up for our folks at home, we've got our Girl Scout troop here who's put together a wonderful little project, and they're sharing it with the board here. I think Randy's working on getting the camera pointed over that direction, right?
Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are Troop 1147. We are 5th grade junior Girl Scouts of Smithville, Missouri. We are working on our Bronze Award project. For our Bronze Award project, our troop chose to make low diabetic kits to be stored in the nurse's office at schools in Smithville, Missouri. We chose to present to the school board so that all of the schools could benefit from these kids. We have girls in our troop that go to Maple and Eagle High School. We wanted to make sure that all diabetics in the district could benefit from these kits. These kits have a list of items as well as the card number for each prepackaged item. This is to help the diabetic be able to do quick math when they're dropping low. The kit highlights that if a diabetic is 70 or below, they must take 15 carbs and wait 15 minutes to check sugar levels again. We chose to make more diabetic kits as a one-to-one project because one of our girls has type 1 diabetes and has that. We wanted to learn more about what happens to her when she drops low, how we can help, and how to spread awareness to others. We appreciate the time you've been giving us to share this information and the opportunity to provide more diabetic kits to surrounding schools. Sincerely, the girls of Troop 1147, Joy Peters, Sir Code, Kingsley Archibald, Kaylee Bradshaw, and Sage Ball.
Can we come take a peek at it and you can show us what's in here? So, first of all, thank you all. Thank you. What do you have here?
We have all the cards and all the things we have in our kits in here. So this 15 cards for each that has each thing with all the cards and everything. And then on the back it has like allergy stuff that contains to have an allergy.
Like that you girls have different. Because diabetic people need something really quickly. They might have to be in it. Somebody else might need something that has a little bit of approach. So you guys did a really good job there.
Skittles, Starburst, and Avatar. And
So, well done. Thank you, ladies, very much. Great job.
Coming.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Listen to the people. My goal was to have to.
But I did try. Okay.
Thank you, ladies. All right. I forgot.
On enrollment.
Okay, I just have a really quick update on enrollment. If you looked at the report, you can see we have declined by 17 since the beginning of the year. Only one building has increased by one, and that's Horizon, but if you look at over time, we're just pretty flat. So, any questions about enrollment?
Do we have an understanding of what's causing the decrease or just? Yeah.
I think it's just natural ebb and flow. We usually see that people enroll and then they kind of disperse and then you have your occasional move in and out, so. Nothing alarming.
All right, next item on the agenda, 10.3, middle school door frame and window replacement.
Thank you, Mr. Blucher. Wanted to share a quote that we had that we discussed in our last board meeting. So it's an old business. This is the door repair that we have to the middle school for several different entries that we have, mostly along the south entrance. And you can see the detailed repairs for each entrance and what those entail. And then it has the total for the replacement for that redesign. And I would be happy to answer any questions based on that quote.
I know it's kind of later in the agenda, but the board had the opportunity to attend the Missouri School Board Association conference recently in Kansas City, and there was a healthy dose, as you can imagine, of school safety, including a presentation by the principal from Columbine, as well as a parent from Sandy Hook. So had an opportunity to learn some very valuable lessons from those folks, as well as a conference that took place beforehand. So I know each board member will be sharing their thoughts later in the agenda, but I know that this is an important topic for everyone. So any additional questions on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommendation as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you very much. Motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 10.4, 2020 bond savings project, rooftop units.
Yes, so the next proposal I have in front of you for this evening involves 3 units. And those units involve the high school, or sorry, those units involve the middle school and Horizon Elementary. And, you know, we need to continue our deferred maintenance plan. We need to continue those improvements. And so, of course, we're very hopeful about the no tax increase bond that we're running in April of 2023, but we need to continue our planning phases no matter what happens. And so those 3 units were identified through our work order system as the units that have been replaced, parts, service the most over the last several years. And so this also allows them to do the engineering that they would need to do for all units on Horizon Middle School, which allows us to replace all the RTUs except for the ones that were replaced this last summer at Middle School Horizon, and be able to do that this summer in 2023. Without this pre-engineering done on these 3 units, we would not be able to have the window to do it in 23, and we have to do it in the summer of 24. So this kind of checks 2 boxes there. 1, it continues our deferred maintenance plan, and 2, it allows the engineering to start on those, so we could possibly get all the RTUs in the summer of 23 and get that project complete for those buildings. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that proposal.
Any questions for Mr. Hedgecourse? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the recommendation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes 6-0 with one absent. Excited to get this
Right,
going.
absolutely.
And thank you for everyone in those buildings for
Yes.
their patience.
Agreed. Thank you.
Next time on the agenda, 10.5 safety update.
Well, as you mentioned before the MSBA conference at the beginning of the month, I attended the Midwest School Safety Summit for 2 days. It was an excellent conference with superintendents, school resource officers, emergency management people from across not only Missouri, we had Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, a variety of groups. 2 wonderful keynote speakers, Michelle Gay, she was the keynote the first day. She is a parent of a child that was lost at the Sandy Hook school shooting. She has started a program called Safe and Sound Schools and has formed this wonderful network of, I would call them survivors, of individuals that have been through a variety of crises crises, I guess is the correct word, and presented many things. Also, as you said, Frank DeAngelis, he was the principal at Columbine High School. He spoke of his experience. He was a very powerful speaker. My personal friend, CJ Huff, he was the superintendent in Joplin through that tornado. He's a part of that network. So whether it be a school shooting, an emergency such as a tornado, whatever emergency may be in your community, they talked about all of that. And so since school safety is one of my top 3 goals this year, it was really important for us to discuss everything that's going on. And we've made some real progress, everything from meeting with our emergency response teams to conducting safety walkthroughs. We have safety on our upcoming bond because that's important to all of us to make sure our kids are as safe as possible. But the next step would be revising our emergency operating plan. I've been talking about that each month. The Center for Educational Safety, they have a template that schools are using. It's excellent. I got a chance to look at that. So I'll be working with central office teams and building teams to revamp our plan. We already have plans in place, so don't fear. We do have plans in place. So it's just making sure that we review those plans and that we have things in place. But something I wanted to mention is that when we talk of school, when we speak of school safety, it really should be more comprehensive. And so I want to talk about the 6 pillars. The first is mental and behavioral health. That's a huge function of school safety. If you think about students, so I'll go back to the school shooting, for example. If we think about students that have gone through that, they have many times, those shooters are students that have struggled with a mental health, something with behavior. They've had trauma in their life. They have not felt like they've belonged. And oftentimes they were known as students that struggled. And so this is a really important component. That's why we focus on social emotional learning and we put those things in place for students, is because, you know, all of our kids come from different areas and this might be a way to help a student. The second bucket would be health and wellness, making sure that we're healthy and that we're well physically. Physical safety and security, you know, our physical plans, our capital projects as we're speaking of. Culture, climate, and community. You know, again, that sense of belonging. Everybody wants to feel like they belong to something. How important is that relationship with students and teachers and parents and our community members? Making sure that not only if we would have a crisis, but how would our community respond? You know, they talked a lot about hearts, hands, and minds. Would we rally around one another? Could we count on one another? And, you know, we went through a crisis at the beginning of the year with the school bus, and we did have that, and our community did rally, and our parents were super supportive, and it was really amazing to see that. And so, you know, we're in a great place. Leadership, law, and policy. What are the legalities when it comes to school safety? And finally, the operations and emergency management, which is the piece we tend to talk about the most, you know, making sure that we have things outlined. What do we do? What's the plan? How do we build relationships with our media? How do we work on communication? So it's a big topic that reaches its tentacles in a lot of places. And so we are doing a very comprehensive look at this year. And so I'm excited to say that we've been, you know, doing lots of things. We're having incident command training that I'll be participating in January. We're working with the city to hire a second school resource officer. We'll be interviewing the beginning of December, hopefully for that person to start in January. We've talked a lot about adding personnel. So we would have 2 resource officers plus 1 school safety monitor. You know, the board's discussed, would we want to hire somebody? I've reached out to Clay County. I've spoken with Sheriff Aiken. I have some questions out there still. You know, those are some logistics we'll have to work through as you work with, you know, a variety of agencies in one school. That always makes it complicated. And Chief Lockridge and I have met just recently. And so we continue to work and build those relationships. The city may even be doing some crisis response training in our facility over the break. So there's a lot of pieces to this, and I'm excited where we're going and hope I have more information. I'm not sure how much more I'll have in December since the meeting's coming up soon, but there'll definitely be more to share in January when it comes to school safety. Any questions for me? It's something I could talk about for hours, so I don't know. It's dangerous to ask.
Thank you. Any questions?
Appreciate your passion, you can tell. So thank you for working on all of this for all of our kids and teachers.
Yeah,
and staff.
comprehensive approach. It's a great methodology, and I like the pillars that you've outlined.
Thank you.
Very
Very
good.
good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll move on to 10.6, instructional assistant and substitute staffing update.
So during a concern that we had about two employee categories, our substitute staffing and then our instructional assistants. Together, we kind of went through that and all the aspects of what those two categories really do and how they impact a variety of things. While we're diving into that, we are still in the process of trying to determine which options may be the best for the district. Oh, well, we gotta have the beef sticks. So basically, we just wanted to provide an update to say we're not ready with a recommendation today, but we are working through a variety of things. We brought several scenarios, several options to the table, and we're still trying to dive into that. We know that the decision that we make collaboratively as a cabinet is going to have a big impact and it's going to be far reaching. So we want to make sure that we've really thought it through. So we should have a recommendation for you in December. That is our goal. And that's what we're going to work towards. I'm happy to answer questions, but that's just a brief update.
Thank you very much for the continued work on trying to find the right solution for this. I know it's not an easy one. Any additional questions? All right, we'll move on to item 10.7, insurance update.
This is an update for the board on where we're at with going to market for our insurance. So last year, and just as a reminder, we had the staff and the board want us to go out to market so we could compare a fully funded medical and dental plan against our current self-funded medical and dental plan. Last year, we got nobody come to the table wanting to take on our business. So we put that on pause and we said we'd try again this year. So we retained CBIZ last year. They also just paused. They didn't charge us anything additional. They've stepped back in this year. They went out to bid for us. And not only did we go out to bid for our medical and dental plans, but all of our products. You know, we lost our telemedicine product March of last year. And then just recently, I added into your memo that St. Luke's has informed us that effective December 31st, they will no longer provide EAP services outside of the St. Luke's healthcare system. And so we wanted to get that out to bid as well. We know that's a really important piece to help support all of our staff members. So the good news is that CBIZ reached out to me about a week ago, said that 2 providers have come back with a proposal for medical and dental insurance, and that is Blue Cross and Blue Shield and United Healthcare. So we're planning to meet on November 30th to go through some of those basic things, numbers, plans, what that looks like. Then our next steps will be to bring the committee together. We'll first educate on truly what does it mean to be self-funded, and then truly what does it mean to be in a fully funded product. And then we'll let the 2 groups give a presentation on what that would be. So if we landed on, let's say, United Healthcare, CBIZ would come in and present on that particular product and what that looks like. And then a representative from our current self-funded model will come in and talk about our current plan and the way that that works. So the committee can analyze that, ask questions, understand it, and then provide some pros and cons for the administration. And then we'll typically bring a recommendation for insurance to the board in January. That's usually our goal. But with this process, that's not going to happen that soon. So it'll be pushed back just a little bit. We do open enrollments in April, so we can capture all of that before our staff leaves for the summer. So we do work within a tight window as soon as the new year rolls around. But that's where we're at as of today.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. Do we have a board member on that committee? I know we used to have one.
I believe Susan is listed. We have not pulled the committee back together, but I do have all the information from last time. I think.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitaker.
What?
That's what we were trying to decide up here. Happy to do it.
Oh, who y'all were gonna pick? I can tell you.
I know Sarah used to serve on that, so
Oh, was it Sarah?
she did at one point.
Maybe it was Sarah.
Oh,
So if it is, we'll be reaching out with asking for a representative on the board.
On the bidding process, do we ever, for this subject matter, do we ever, in the past, collaboratively bid with other school districts?
So for our current self-funded model, yes.
But
We go out-
I mean, going out to market instead of doing the self-funded, do we ever go with other school districts and put something together? And
So our self-funded, we are in a consortium with
Right.
other school districts for that. And so when we go out to bid for self-funded models, we do that as a group.
Yeah.
We have not in the past, to my knowledge, done that under a fully funded model.
Okay. Okay.
Are you aware of any consortiums out there that we can leverage in the, like in the greater North Kansas City co-op that we could do that with a funded model? Do we?
With a fully funded model.
Uh-huh.
I would have to do some research on that and try and find out. I'm not aware.
Because, well, I mean, what Scott's really getting at is, can we leverage the buying power of multiple
Right,
districts?
more
instead of
belly
just-
buttons, more buying power.
Correct.
And that's what we're doing with the self-funded model. But I don't know, I'll have to find out.
It-
I'm not aware of any local school districts that do that, but I can ask that question.
I think it would be worth asking. Never know what we come up with.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions on that? If not, we'll move on to 10.8, Missouri State Auditor invoice.
We just thought it would be nice to report out that the audit is finally over. So after many months of that, the 19-page audit document, the final bill has been paid. So the board is aware it's $63,065.81. So that was the cost of the district, which has been paid out of this current year, and our good rating resulted with the findings of this audit, and so we are officially finished with it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It will
So-
be paid as soon as you pay it. Are
You
you approved to pay it?
So with
That
that,
is your bill.
with that, appreciate the fresh eyes and the confirmation of doing things well, and there's always a little bit to tweak. So appreciate that. And with that, I would entertain a motion to pay the auditors those funds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 601. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, 11.1, election filing dates.
Yes, so. Resolution. Let me bring that up. So election filing dates, I wanted to share this document with you, and this is just an election calendar that shows the different times that the ballot language is due. And I also wanted to make sure that understood the timeline of why we're coming to the November board meeting with that draft ballot language. So the idea is with the November board meeting, you guys get to look at the draft ballot language. It's a couple of items down and discuss it, look at the verbiage, and then we bring it for approval at the December meeting. So that way, when it's approved at the December meeting, we can take that and we can take it to all the county election boards. You can see that final certification date is due by January 24th. But that January 24th date is really pushing up against the deadline. And so if we can get that approved in December, it gets us time to get to the election board. Also remember that once they open that up, that they place things on the ballot in the order that you turn them in. So if you're early in the process, you're higher on the ballot. If you're later in the process, you're lower on the ballot. So Just kind of wanted to share those dates with you. And you can see that our official election day is April 4th. And so that's the general municipal election day. And that kind of gives the timelines for when each of the candidate filings, then also the final certification date. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that election calendar. And that's information only.
Fantastic.
Is that action? I'm sorry.
For those potentially interested in running for the school board, we'll be holding a potential candidate forum on December 8th. We'll send out more information soon, but allow those folks to learn a little bit more about what it means and answer some questions.
Thanks for reminding me. There's an important second part of that you just mentioned was the board election. So that's one of the other reason why this agenda item was put on here. My mind's been on facilities all night long, so I went straight to the bond. So
that's okay. There's this small body we got to take care of too, right?
Exactly.
So with that, a little bit more information will come on that candidate forum. And any questions? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the election calendar as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. And motion passes 601. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, 11.2, the resolution expressing the intent of the Smithville School District to reimburse itself for certain capital expenditures.
So Mr. Joe Kender from Stiefel Financial Group talked a little bit about this. We purchased the land just next to Our Savior for the transportation facility. And so what this resolution does is this allows us to pay us back from the general obligation bond for those expenses that we incurred when we purchased that land. That has to be done within, that resolution has to be done within 60 days of the purchase of that land. And so that's why we have it as an action item on this November board meeting. It's just something that, you know, kind of that checking that box to make sure we have done that. Doesn't mean we have to, you know, pay that from the bond proceeds, but it just gives us the opportunity to, if we so want to, during that time. So happy to answer any questions that you may have on this resolution.
Any questions on the resolution? Not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 601. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda, 11.3, draft general obligation bond ballot language for April 4 of 2023 election.
Yeah. This agenda item falls a little bit into the election filing dates. The reason, again, we have it in the November board meeting is just information only. Let you put eyes on the draft language that we would have on the ballot in April for that no tax increase general obligation bond. And this was this language was crafted with the help of Gilmore Bell, who is our bond counsel. And so they have all the legal language that needs to be in there. You can kind of see the beginning that talks about purchasing land, constructing, improving, extending, repairing, rebuilding, renovating, acquiring, furnishing, and equipping new and existing facilities, including, and then it lists out those projects that we have that you saw early in our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Some questions might need to be brought back to Gilmore Bell for more legal clarification if you have anything that you would like to see modified or changed. But be happy to answer anything that I can during this time.
Concession that there's tax rates going to be remained unchanged. Are we able to move that to the top? I thought we did that our last ballot issue that we went out on.
I can ask that question. I know there's been a lot talked about what verbiage you can use. You know, no tax increase and those type of things been thrown around. So a lot of that happened in the last assembly.
Yeah, I think the verbiage is good. I just want to see it first.
Okay.
I want the voter to say, okay, this is not going to impact my pocket.
I'll definitely check with Gilmore Bill on that and see if that is possible. I don't see why not. It makes sense because that is a highlight of this vote, but I'll definitely ask them and
okay, thank you.
Their feedback.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in it.
I think we gotta change some of the language concerning the turf. I don't want to hold this up, so I think I'd take out the word synthetic turf and just say turf improvements, because I think we need to have a long, hard conversation on synthetic versus grass. Especially in light of some of the things like the NFL Players Association coming out against turf, FIFA talking bad about turf. There's a lot of information about turf that I think we need to sit down and really decide whether turf is a good solution for our students or not. But I don't want to hold this up for the bond issue. Either way, something's going to have to be done about that field to improve the surface. So if we could take out just a synthetic there and just plan on doing something to the field and then have a conversation about that at a later time, I think would be.
Yeah, there's a lot of research on that. I did include an article in the Executive Director of Sports Services agenda item that talks about that piece, synthetic versus grass. So there is conflicting research out there. One thing to remember that the NFL has people like Travis Hogan, who's in charge of all their groundskeeping for the Chiefs. We don't have that on our grass facilities. And so it's definitely apples versus oranges when you're comparing an NFL grass field versus a synthetic field. Another big part of a synthetic field is the opportunities, right? Even if you have grass and have a better grass, a better surface, if it rains, there's dew in the morning, there's different things that keep it from being used at all times. And when you have that much traffic on grass field, no matter who you have, the Chiefs play on their field, maybe twice a month. This will be used every single day, and grass just cannot keep up with that type of use. And so you're going to have a mud spots in many different locations with the use we'd have on that field. And so it's part opportunity, part safety on that.
Robert, you're presenting one side of the argument. There is another side out there that needs to be presented and we need to look at. I don't want to hold up the bond issue. So I'm just asking us to take the word synthetic out so that we can actually do a good, honest look at the pros and cons of turf.
Just clarification. Either just want to change the verbiage to turf improvements.
Yes.
Right, so there's flexibility to make that decision later on.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I think turf improvements would allow that conversation to take place. Is there any reason not to change it to turf improvements? Because all he's asking for is just to change the verbiage. And it sounds like we can still do the field as is, as it has been discussed, or we can change based on the conversation, right?
I think that would be wise.
Is there?
It would
This
be,
gives us the option.
it would be, whatever the board would like to do. I think the reason it was put in there synthetic turf is just to make sure that the public didn't think we were trying to deceive at all by saying turf improvements. And so whichever way it went, you might have some people say, well, you didn't say that in the bond language. And so I think that's the reason we put it in, just to be very forthright. If you guys would like to, if the majority of the board would like to change that verbiage to turf improvements, there's nothing legally that keeps you from doing so.
It seems broad enough still to
Right.
fall under that category. It's neither here or there. I'm just trying to get clarification.
Yeah. But if it's stated as synthetic turf in the bond issue, then there is no chance of having this discussion and letting wiser heads prevail.
Correct. With that, are you making a motion to?
No action on this item. This is info only.
Okay.
What I would do is take the suggestions back to Gilmore Bell, who's our bond counsel, ask those questions. Denise will be able to give you guys feedback on that. And then if you guys do meet, if you guys do agree on some ballot language, we can wait until the December board meeting. Obviously, the earlier that would be approved, the earlier we can take that to the different county board of elections and get that presented. December meeting is certainly fine. But it does help to be a little early. So just wanted to mention that if there's no other major, thoughts about any of the other language.
And I'll share my personal opinion on, I think we need to be clear with our voters, and I would prefer to not see the language change, to be clear with the voters. And then also have some orthopedic surgeons and sports medicine folks who have worked for me and have pretty strong feelings on the importance of this based on some of the things that have been highlighted. So I'm one of 7 votes, but that is my opinion.
The biggest suggestion here is Mr. Saxon asking for that language to be put up front. So, yeah, I think we can still talk through all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, I know I'm just gonna disagree. I think I would much rather be specific, but I'm also in favor of synthetic. And for prolonging a conversation, my mind's already made up. The wear and tear, it'd be different if we had a guy who had a $200,000 operating budget to maintain grass that got played on twice a month. The operational impact versus me who's played on grass and turf. Turf feels better to fall on. So to me, it's not gonna matter.
It's disappointing because a real quick web search will show you that there is a elevated number of lower body injuries in playing on turf. At the high school, and college level. And if that information is true, we're putting in a turf that's going to elevate injuries in lower bodies to our students.
So I do agree that this may need to be a separate topic, but I think we're straying from the topic that's on here. And I think we need to probably follow up with a separate discussion on that topic and stick to the agenda item that we have on hand.
So I
So
don't disagree,
we
but
can
Robert
follow.
needs direction from the board on what the language should look like.
I think you said with December is fine, right?
Yeah, for action.
For action.
So at that time, do you want me to bring two versions of the language, or would that be?
I'm okay
Preference
with
of the
making
board or-
concession for turf too, so we can have a conversation and get you approved.
Just bring two options. and
Okay.
we'll have the discussion.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, if there's no further discussion on 11.3, 11.4 personnel report.
Yes, included in your packet is the personnel report for November. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
This was reviewed in executive session, given the nature of it as related to personnel. So it's been discussed at that time. Is there any further discussion on this topic? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Who was
the second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 601. Thank you very much.
Yep.
11.5, student representative to the board. So as was shared earlier this evening, we had the opportunity to attend the Missouri School Board Association and hear best practices from several different districts. Several of our members had the opportunity to attend a couple different sessions that highlighted how to increase the voice of the community broadly and inclusive of students to the Board of Education. And one of the ideas that was brought forward is potentially including a student representative to the board. We won't be taking action on this item this evening, but wanted to bring this up for discussion, and so would open it to the board for discussion at this time.
Yeah, I was able to attend one of those sessions and I about it. What a great opportunity for a student and for us. Now, I know you said December to make it an action item, but one of the suggestions is to have it January, then begin in January. So what would that process look like? Does that allow us enough time then? Because they had a whole application process.
Yeah, and in my mind, I think we need to ask the administration to work on pulling together an appropriate policy and some ideas on how to do that. I know one of the ideas that was thrown out was potentially kind of appointing someone to start to get it going and then figuring out how the student body could kind of help figure out who the appropriate representative is to the board. And so I think, between administration, central office, I think bringing forth some ideas and then allowing us to have some further discussion in December for some sort of action and adoption is probably how I see it playing out, but.
Yeah, and then one of the other recommendations in the seminar was that as a younger student, a sophomore, junior, so there's a transition and a carryover, which I thought was pretty interesting concept. So
just to make sure that I'm understanding right, just everybody's knows too. They would not be voting. They would just be a advisor, somebody to like gather information from students and bring it and help us know what the students are thinking. Is that the position?
Correct. I think that's how it played out. And we got a couple different policies from other districts. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity to be a student representative to the city council where I lived. So I attended the meetings. I could speak all day long. I did not attend executive session. I did not have a vote. I could not, act in any capacity, but could sit and speak on different topics and share my opinions and thoughts. I know the city through their Parks and Rec committee has a student representative on the Parks and Rec board. They're actually a voting member because they're appointed to the board. But that's one of the ways that they've reached out to get additional youth input.
Yeah, and I think it's all laid out in the policy that we've adopted. They would participate in the discussion, so they also would get briefed and ahead of time and have the agenda and participate in conversation so they can talk about synthetic turf. So
I think to your point, I don't know that they would be able to start.
just throw that out there, right?
But they could start later. It may not be a January since the board meetings, the 14th, and then we're off for 2 weeks. So it may be a little later, but you saw the survey for all the Kansas City schools, and there are 2 doing it and 2 more looking into it besides us. And I have the information to a superintendent in the Washington School District in Missouri to call her and gather some more information so we can do some research on our end as well and share back out, to your point, next month.
Very good. So it sounds like there's some interest in pulling something together and figuring out how to do this. So exciting. And for all these students who are clearly watching at home, if you're interested, please let Dr. Platt or someone know.
Don't worry, Dr. Platt, we'll have conversations.
All right. Next item on the agenda, the ever popular catch-all 12.1 miscellaneous.
I had to get to it. So several items here. I already put that about the audit in there, which I don't know why I put that in there, but oh, thank you for that. I'm like, too many audits. I apologize. Our on-site review of our audit, our regular school district audit, wrapped up on November 4th. We received a great review for that, and we had an exit interview with Brad Steele from Westbrook, and he will provide a report at the next board meeting in December. Thank you, Karen. You have to take care of me. Thank you. Our central office will be hosting a holiday open house on Wednesday, December 7th from 2:30 to 5. Of course, you're welcome to stroll through and have some snacks and celebrate with.
Very good.
That's right. But if you're all coming at the same time, we have to post it. So board and administration will distribute holiday turkeys at each school on that 14th as well. Remember at the last meeting, I think we signed up for schools. We'll have our cabinet sign up to go with you, and we'll be handing those out. And then you'll come back here. It's to meet with the principals at 5:30. Dinner will be provided here for you so you can have a bite to eat since you're handing out turkeys and then going straight into a meeting. So that will be all here at central office. And I'm going to skip number 4. We'll go back to it. Number 5 is the board will consider student nominations for the John T. Belcher Scholarship at the December meeting. So students will be turning those in so the board can consider those students. Can you believe it's already the end of a first semester? And then board walkthroughs, we decided to keep on November 30th. So principals, board walkthroughs will remain on the 30th. I sent the schedule, but if you need me to, I'll resend it. I'll find it and resend it so you know exactly what time they'll be at your building. And then going back to number 4, if you would like to share about your experiences at the MSBA conference, we'd like to give you time to do so.
So we'll open it up, and I'll pick on our 2 new members, as I know you attended new member orientation as well. So would you like to start and share your experiences? And ladies first.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I loved it. I learned a lot. The new member training. I feel like it was valuable in knowing now the new candidates what we can share with them at that candidate workshop that might be helpful. And then our general sessions were great. And then the breakout groups went to everything from Title IX to gifted program, teacher induction. And hopefully we'll be able to utilize all those things learned. I have notes and notes. But one of my highlights was the last night with Jackie Joyner Kersey. Amazing, such an inspiration and just very real in how she talked to us. And she talked all about raising champions. Champions, keyword coming up, right? Again, champions. But I love that idea of empowering our students to become champions. And she said, we can't want it for our kids, but we can put them in positions to want it themselves. And I hope that we as a board have that mindset. What can we do to empower these champions of Smithville?
Thank you.
Yes, I won't have that much to share, but no, it was a great conference. A lot of great topics covered by the conference. They covered a lot of difficult topics, and I thought one of the most interesting was being able to hear from more experienced board members at other districts, and conversations with the Board of Education in the state of Missouri. That was very interesting. And some of the challenges that have been going on for years in education still are going on, and the difficulties that teachers face. And then obviously around teacher retention and engagement, I thought was fantastic. So, yeah.
Mr. Haggerty, would you like to share your thoughts and observations?
Out of all the breakout sessions that I attended, 2 of them stood out. One of them was on teacher retention. There was a lot of information given on teacher retention. And that is a big issue. And anybody who is, our community needs to hear that this is a big issue, and it's going to be a big issue. And it's something we really need to address and put in the forefront of our thoughts. And then the other one I was attended that was really, really interesting was a community involvement breakout session where the school was doing what they called a backstage pass. And it was a 5-week, 3 hours or one night a week for 5 weeks and 3 hours each night, where they went through the back office of a school, the finances, how it all works, what the school board does, what's the difference between the levy and a bond, and what are the actual issues in the schools. And then they also attended each school and got to see the conditions of some of the schools, especially those that were in stages of dilapidation, where they needed some extra money to help out. So it was a good way for the school to get community members involved and get them to see what the school is actually doing and what it's really all about. So those are the 2 that were the 2 breakout sessions. And then it was good to hear Dr. D'Angelo and put a face with all that. You hear those stories, and those stories are all them. And there's a chance to really go, okay, these are real people. They're real people. They're real events. So that was interesting.
Very good. Thank you. I know, Mr. Saxon, you were otherwise occupied, but any observations you wish to share at this time?
No, I have none. Mr. Blumker.
All right. Best of luck in the deer stand. Mrs. Whitaker?
This was my first one to actually get to go to in person, because COVID was the first year. They canceled it and they done one online. So anyway, it was good. It was a good networking. I think, the two things that stood out for me, and I apologize, I totally forgot. What was the astronaut's name? Does anybody remember? But he was an African-American man who went to public schools in Houston and grew up and became a medical doctor and an astronaut. Showed us wonderful pictures of space, which I love, but what he's doing now is working with like a national STEM organization and trying to work with diversifying our STEM teachers. We have so many, kids that they're being taught by teachers that might not look like them or have come from the same places. So I thought that was just a neat thing that we're working on that. And then just going to the president's workshop, I got to do that because Mr. Blomaker couldn't go. So I was a fill-in for us, but it's eye-opening to see that we have 594-ish districts in Missouri that go from, very small, 200 in a whole district to thousands and 5,000 and more, but we're all having some of the same problems. We might be a lot different, but we're a lot alike in how that we need to stand together as public education and as school boards and everybody in Missouri. That was something that was really good for me.
Very good. I attended a variety of sessions on Friday and Saturday. Many of them had to do with superintendent search and superintendent contract negotiations for some strange reason. Very useful, very valuable. And as everyone kind of said, a great opportunity to talk to fellow board members from across the state, see they're dealing with the same issues, how they're tackling those issues and getting best practices. And, everything from, I remember a year ago and going to my new member orientation and meeting someone who, as a board member, they each had a day of the week where they had to go open the school because they were that small of a district. I'm grateful that we don't have to do that. So thank you to our team here who takes care of that day-to-day stuff. But a great opportunity and lots of great sessions and networking. So for our administrative team who attended, any key observations you want to share?
Well, again, I think it was just wonderful to attend with our board and to have that time to collaborate and to talk through issues and, through our district to learn together that professional development is so important. It is a part of our MSIP. We had a standard that we completed that shows that we are professionally learning together as a school board. I went to everything from budgets to teacher retention, social media and communication, teacher, new teachers. So I guess it was teacher retention. So talking about onboarding and working with mentors. So the whole conference was really great. And although this wasn't a part of the conference, I think it's important that you all know how hard our school board really works. They put in so much time that you have no idea that they're learning on their own. They're sacrificing family time for our students and never complain about it. So many nights, I think this has been kind of an exceptional year as far as the amount of meetings and the time. I mean, even just for superintendent search, that's 4 nights in a row, just in 1 week for one event. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of everything that they've given this year. So very grateful for you and your leadership and your dedication to our students and our community. I just hope our community knows how hard they're working for our kids. And so you need to be commended for all that. So sorry, that's a little sidebar, but you deserve that recognition.
So I'm already working on some of the ideas that picked up at the conference. It was one of the best conferences I've been to in a long time. Very high quality. Definitely look forward to it again next year since it's in Kansas City again. But specifically with gifted and teacher retention, there are 2 things I'm working on. Hopefully I'll have an update for you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And as was said, a great opportunity to attend together, learn some best practices and grow as a governance team. I'm really excited about the great work the school board is doing and working together and the community outreach that's going on.
Last thing that's not on the agenda is don't forget Saturday at 1 p.m. Our Warriors are playing in the quarterfinals. So very excited. So come out and support our student athletes and our coaches.
And basketball tipped off tonight, so right around the corner.
All right.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a reluctant second. If there's no further discussion, please vote. 601, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. For a couple of us, this is 3 nights in a row of school related activities. So thank you for your dedication, as was said, and we'll see you all soon with our superintendent interviews. Thank you very much and good night.